section.
I need to make an adjustment to my screen.
Okay.
Okay.
So when you go into TE, it's probably going to go ahead and open up like normal. So you'll have to log out just because it'll remember you've already logged in. So in this specific tab, go ahead and log out as you. Yep. And then log in using my email address. So once it finishes here. There we go.
Okay. C. Hayden.
Nope, it's Conception. CONCEPCION .Hayden at irely.com. And then password is 1234. And then log in. So I looked up one of the customers that frequently looks at the e-commerce or logs into your e-commerce. So it's Seven Lakes. Or at least that was the last one. So I used their login information and their company and used them as our test environment. So the first thing you'll need to do is you're going to have to, once we convert over, and you can even do it now, I think, in i21, but we're going to need their email address because that's what their user name, kind of like how you log into ours, you're logging into yours. So if you had help desk as a license where you wanted to be able to have your customers put in tickets or your stores or any of your consumption sites, this is essentially what you're seeing, but they're accessing your environment and not you accessing ours. So think of it as kind of the same concept.
Okay.
Oh, you can stay logged on to this one. Oops.
Oops.
That's okay, because we were gonna go back and forth, because we're gonna update something in the e-commerce screen at their end, and then show you how it updates your environment, like real time, essentially. So as soon as they save, it updates that.
Okay.
So once we'll let it load on this screen and log back in. So go ahead and go to the second tab for me, the portal tab. So you can actually set up a user portal like if you didn't want them to see the payments history, because that's a report format, it's not necessarily like a grid form, which is what customers normally want to see when they're searching. We can set up the menus and get rid of certain ones if you don't want to. So now that it's available, go ahead and go to the third tab for me, and we're going to start at the portal user role setup. And once you have them set up one time, that customer can then set up their own users to have access, and they can only select the portal user you have available.
Okay.
So if in case they have like the admin person and then they have like the CFO that logs in, they can do that. Or you can actually set up all the user, you can set it up yourself if you want to. So let's start with System Manager. And then go to Portal User Roles under the Activities section. So the default Portal User Roles, it has a far more menus. So it's what we are saying you're allowed to show on the screen. So go ahead and double click that for me. But I've modified it because you didn't need to see scale and all that other grain and ag information. So go ahead and open that. And it's just kind of like the user role screen for regular internal users. All this is it knows that it's a portal access. So if you click the pluses, you'll see that certain screens have already removed, and then transactions, I think I may have removed something there, but that kind of is the same concept. When you change this and you save it, it'll update everybody's. But it's not gonna, if they have it open, obviously it's not gonna, it's gonna reload after they like reload the screen, just because you know, because it's not real time. But go ahead and close this. So that's where you set up the user roles. It's in the System Manager. So as far as the actual setup itself per customer, go ahead and close this screen for me, and go to Sales, and go to the Customers list. So that would be under Maintenance section.
Okay. Customers, or contact list. Customers.
Actually, it's I tend to go to customers first because I want to see the customer and then add contacts there.
Okay.
So then we're going to search for Seven Lakes.
SUBENL, if that helps.
Oh, yeah, it does.
That's the account number.
There we go. Now let's go ahead and open that.
Jimmy, can you enlarge that a little bit?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not without, yeah.
Let me just get closer.
And then once you're done with that, go ahead and go to the contacts. Actually, General tab first.
Yes, I can. How's that?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. General tab.
Yep. So you see where it says Web Portal? You have to enable that and select the portal admin. So you have to select the main person, and then select the portal role. And once you have that enabled, you go then to Contacts tab.
Is that right? Or
that one is something entirely different. So that's for approvals in the system. So that web portal is just enabling. Yep. If you uncheck that, it won't let them log in anymore. It's the moment you check it that'll actually let you in the portal admin and the portal role drop-down selection. So go ahead and uncheck it for me.
Okay.
So then that's what happens. It grays out. Go ahead and check mark it for me again. There you go. Now let's go to the Contacts tab. And then double-click that contact, Randy Merritt. So assuming they already exist in the system, you then what you need to make sure you have is obviously an email, because that's the username for the portal. You check mark the enable if it's not already from the prior screen, and it'll default the username, and you would select the user role at the time. So let's go ahead. If you needed to create a new contact, so let's say for the same customer you need to have access to. So then you just click new. So go ahead and click new for me, and then insert yourself in there, Jimmy.
All right.
And then enable over on the right side. And then select from the user role drop down, which you only have one. Oh, I created non-admin user. I didn't realize that's where you can see it. So go ahead and do that one for me. Yep, and then save this.
Oops.
Oops. Sorry. That's my fault. And save. And close this screen. And then you can now close this screen as well. So if you wanted to try it to make sure that your new login will work, then click another tab up at the top and open up TE again, a new one. There you go. Let's just make sure the difference in the user role setup. So in this case, since you're already logged in, you're going to have to log out of TE and use your email address as your user. So once you have your external link that we were talking with Greg about yesterday, once you have that set up, that's what you would share or link to your, put on your website so that way they can access it.
Okay. And
Do you guys take credit cards in the office?
yes.
You do? Okay. We're going to have to talk about, once we get in here, we were in at CAB, and we talked about how we can take credit cards, but we're only working, so far we're only linked to Vantiv or WorldPay. So if in case that's something you guys want to look into. So
All
in
right.
here, what you would log into is TE. Obviously, when you go live, they'll log into O1. And you'll only have one option unless you have multiple companies, but you guys don't, so it should be easy enough, at least not in the same server. So that specific user role, I only had 4 things on there. That user can enter sales orders, they can see invoices, they can make payments or see payments. Oh, sorry, this one is just payments history. I didn't put make payment on there because there's another menu for that, and then contracts. So you can create different user roles to tie to other users if you want to. So that's the big difference. So now let's go ahead and go back to the main, the second tab. I'm just going to go by tab numbers. So in here, you can see that there's 4 different menus. On the left side, you have My Account, My Company. A lot of those they can just see and they can't really do anything. So let's go ahead and click My Account. And what that will show you is the customer's user profile. So if they needed to change their email address, they could. So it looks just like it when you're clicking on your profile when you're logging into i21. Go ahead and close this screen. A lot of this is really just more information. Really what we need to get into is like the meat of this is in the transaction section. Go ahead and click My Company. So that's showing them their customer master file, but all grayed out. So really that's, I mean, they can click on the tabs, but they shouldn't be able to modify anything.
How can we change this from popping up?
That is on the customer, like you know how Origin, we had a customer inquiry pop up?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but if you want it not to pop up for them, it's only triggered by that one. So in the portal, if you uncheck it, you won't see it and neither will they.
Can we just not let them see the screen?
If you don't want them to see the company, then you just remove it from the menu. Because really in here, I don't know if there's really any value on the portal side unless they can change it for them to have access to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, they know, so go ahead and say okay to this. So then that's just one thing you need to remove off the user role. So let's go ahead and close this. And let's click down on user list. So really a lot of this you probably want to just open and see and then decide, hey, you know what? I don't want to have access on this one or whatever. So you just have to see that. So here they can insert a new user themselves and tie it to the user roles that you have available, which is kind of like the same way you had just entered it in the contacts when you were logged in. So go ahead and close this for me. Assuming you even want them to have access to add users. The payment methods, click that. It's going to pop up an error when you try to add. Go ahead and click add for me. So if you were using, I think it's now called WorldPay and not Vantiv, if you were using that credit card system, we integrate with it. All we really do is we send a token, and then they send back an approval and then that's what the system keeps is the credit card number. And as far as the token, I think if it's not used within 6 months, it sends another token back. So really, we're not processing it. We're just sending information, and they approve it, and then we just get notification that it was approved, and then the money gets deposited into our account, like within days or whatever as the contract says. So in here, assuming you were using our that credit card process, all the user will do is add a credit card number, and then during the transaction section, they can select that credit card as a way to pay an invoice. So on a regular customer, not like I think this is one of your consignment locations. Like if it was me and I have like a tank, I'm a consumption site customer, then I can see all of my history and I can go ahead and pay it with a credit card if I want to.
If you do that, does it get processed in our life as part of a deposit, or?
When you, what it will do is it'll create a payment, but then you still have to post it. So we'll go through that. It'll be the same way as an ACH, but I don't think it posts right away unless they change that recently. So let's go ahead and say okay to this.
Okay. Are you working with additional credit card processing vendors?
I don't know of any. That doesn't mean that. Yeah, let me find out. But I don't think so. Credit card processors. Who are you working with, or who do you guys use?
We're using Heartland.
Heartland. Oh, okay.
Systems.
Heartland for their credit cards. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't, but then obviously, what happens is we develop it, and then you end up, there's development cost and then maintenance on it. So that's something you can look into if it's worth your time, or switch over depending on which one's cheaper. But I know you guys use Heartland for other credit card reconciliation, so it may be that you just can't easily switch to. So let me see. If you go to, but I'll check for you guys though, just to make sure, in case we are working with others.
All right.
Now, the balance inquiry under the account, what that is like F9. So if they wanted to go through like the F9 process, if you go up to the detail menu up at the top, it'll give them a drop-down selection. So Origin, we had it where you can see it right on the screen. So in i21, we have it as a selection, and it opens up the grid. And then it should show all their payments history and so on. So there's other menus on there. So in this screen, their information didn't pop up. You notice that? Oh, yep. I was wrong. It did. It was just shorter. I would have been happy if they didn't, because then you could have given them the info by removing that. So now what we'll have to see is if you remove my company from the option, but they have customer inquiry screen, I'll have to check that if it will remove the pop-up. Because those are internal notes, and you don't necessarily want the customer to see it. I understand that part.
If we can remove that, I mean the customer master or the customer inquiry, my company, that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
We'll test it thoroughly first.
Okay. And then, so now we're going to skip tank management and go to transactions first. So if you click sales orders, let's say you want 7 lakes and they have access to this, and instead of calling the office, the customer can enter their own order in. But what this is going to do is it's not going to be a tank order. This one is like a regular sales order that doesn't go through the whole consumption site process. So they ordered, go ahead and open this one for me.
That's what, yeah.
So this, they entered in their own sales order, and if you entered it in at your end, they would see it as well. But this one I entered myself through the portal screen, and I said I want 1,000 gallons of propane, And all they can do to this is save it. They can click New, Save, or Duplicate. So let's say you want to go ahead and create another order. Go ahead and click Duplicate for me.
Oops. I jumped
Or you
ahead.
can do that. That's fine. You're okay. I was just trying to. In this case, you can't duplicate the blank, so then you have to close this screen. And then reopen that and then click Duplicate. So the customer can duplicate the record. I mean, it's going to default to today's date. So just because the original one's July 10th, it's already July 10th. And then they can go ahead and change the ordered amount. And they can leave it as blank price, so it doesn't have to have a price. And then do me a favor. I added a contract for this customer too. So actually remove that line for me. And then retype in 1201 in the item number. Okay. And then select the contract. Okay. So they can select the contract here or skip through if they want to. Each contract requires a sequence. So, and go ahead and select a sequence for me. Let's say you have a customer and during a period of, let's say, 10 months, you created a contract for 1,000 gallons. And then you have another sequence and say, okay, they just went over that 1,000. You want to create another contract with a different time frame. So you could have multiple sequences and not have to create a new contract every time. Or if you just want to have one history for a customer, so that's saying contract balance is 8,000 because my first delivery was 2,000. So it tells you, hey, you have 8,000 left of this contract. Now that cash price is showing 2 decimal places, so it's rounding up. The contract was actually for 2,399. So I need to switch how it's showing on your screen.
Okay.
So if they did have multiple contracts for this product, they'll be able to see the balances of each one. Now, if there's no balance left, it won't show in the screen. Or if the time frame is up, so if this one, the due date is, I don't remember, sometime next year. So if the due date was 1 month and they're already past that, it won't show as well. So now let's go ahead and change the ordered amount. Instead of 8,000, change that to like 1,000. Okay. So because you selected the contract, it is going to give it a price. So let's go ahead and save this for me. And then close this screen. Now I want you to go over to so they see that they entered in a sales order. Go to the second tab. The third tab up at the top. And go to your login.
Oh, up here.
Yep.
Okay.
So now I want you to close this screen for me. We don't need to go back to the customers. And then go to sales orders underneath the activity section. So it's real time. They saved it. You're going to see their sales order in here. So now if you double click that sales order 2, which is the order they just created, you can tell because the other one I already invoiced. So it says status is closed. Go ahead and just for the sake of going through the whole process, I want you to go ahead and invoice this for me. And just up at the top, click invoice. There you go. So this is like kind of like the whole shipment confirmation process in Origin. So this is taking an order and now you're creating an invoice. There's a process in between, which is the shipping part, if you guys want to go through that whole thing. But a lot of customers, I find it that they have an order, they know it's delivered, they don't need pick tickets, so they just want to go ahead and click the invoice. So all that information flows through, and now you can just post this invoice.
Conception, does someone get an alert that that order has been put in?
You know,
Does it
not right
contact
now.
organization?
Not right now. What I can find out is if the sales order, I know in 19.1 they have added approvals, but I've not tested it to know if it's like vouchers that, we know for sure because that's been around for a while. But I know they added, because I can see approval on there, in I21 for the sales side. So let me test it and find out for sure. But if you did have a sales order entered and it went through the approval process, and there is capability on that, then that would be the only way that I can think of in order for you guys to get an alert that a sales order is there.
Okay.
Because then what kind of alert were you thinking? Like something on the screen?
Like an email alert where something pops up at the bottom of the screen or something like that, or you have orders, outstanding orders in the queue or something like that.
Something of the sort. Yeah, that makes sense, because otherwise how are you going to know that they
You just have to
entered
constantly checking it. So,
Right,
but
constantly.
if you're getting alerts that they're there,
Gotcha.
and
Some way to let you know that. Go ahead.
I guess we'd have to have the capability of, like if it's a lube order, it goes to the lube department, and if it's a gas order, to the dispatcher for that.
Right.
So
Right.
we have to have multiple
Okay.
or separation of who that order goes to.
Right. So if it was designed the same way as the voucher screen,
Right.
you define on there, and do you guys use approvals there for vouchers?
We've
We
tried.
tried this, we don't have it working at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the way that the approvals on the voucher side work is that you tie a customer or an entity to a list of approvals. Or so let's say that once I send like a voucher, I submit it for approval, then like Chris Pels gets an email in the approvers list for him to approve before we can proceed forward. But let me check on that for you, because that's all voucher stuff. So I know that I can see that there's a tab on here. I just don't know how it works, if it's even completely done. But that would be good though, because you're right. You would have to continue to have a tab that says open orders and have to keep checking it, and you know what I mean. So yeah, I can see the value in that. Okay, so go ahead and post this for me. And then this is where if they have like prepays sitting or any credits sitting out, well, prepays and credits, you can say yes and it'll automatically apply the credit to the invoice. So for this case, just go ahead and say no. That way we can pay it later. There's an indicator in the company config where it auto applies and it doesn't ask you, but Origin just auto applies. But the problem with that is there's got to be a hierarchy that it follows, because what if that prepay was for something else and it's not specific to this contract? So we'll just have to take a look at that. So now go back to the second tab again. So if you refresh this screen for me and then scroll over to the right side, the customer's order status now closed because it's been invoiced. So their status changes on their screen. And then if you go ahead and close this for me and go into the invoices section under the transaction section. They're going to see all prior history of invoices and any credits or anything else that you would normally see in your invoice grid for that customer. And then if they wanted to, just like the invoice detail report, if they wanted to know what they purchased and wanted a history of that, that's where they would go, is the invoice detail report. So, I mean, it's just, we did Portal in a way that it's easy to train a customer because you're using it daily too. So what they're seeing is no different than what you are seeing unless you start blocking out certain information. So go ahead and click Invoice Detail Report for me. And then scroll over to the right. So if they wanted to see a list of everything they purchased they could doing it this way, kind of like how we worked on that yesterday and we looked at it. So now let's go ahead and open that top invoice so they can open it as well, so they can actually view it on the screen, and if they needed to print the invoice, they could. If they were set up for email, they could email it to themselves or whoever is set up as a contact for email. They can do that. So now, just because we're in this screen and I want to show you with the whole contract process, click that pricing button right on top of ordered column. It's like a little icon. Go down a little bit, go to the right, and it says pricing. Yep. So let's say you have multiple pricing mechanisms or different pricing methods. If you click that, is it letting you in? Or maybe they don't have access to it in this screen.
No, it's not letting me in.
Okay. Oh, I guess that's a good thing because this is the portal. At your end, you can see it. So click that second tab. I'm sorry, the third tab. If you have the invoice button, click that pricing for me. I know you opened it earlier, so hopefully it'll work. Is it not loading?
No, it's not loading.
Okay. Click unpost. Then let's see if it will let you open it. Is it not? No?
No, it's not.
I know let me see it on the server. That's a side. What I was trying to do there is show you the different pricing available for that product for that location. But why can't you see it and I can?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Click the check mark, like the little box, and check mark that line of the item, so it doesn't know which product, which item number. Multiple lines. So that would have been nice. So this tells you which pricing was used. So if there was standard pricing, it looks like we don't have anything for this location set up. And so it says 0, and the difference is $2, and that's still doing its rounding. And then if you did a manual override, so let's say it came in at $23.99, but then you overrode it to $259, it'll know that you changed it. And then if there were set up for pricing level, it would show that as well. So some people like it because then it's just kind of like a pricing audit trail as to what happened. Why didn't you use the contract? And just a difference in pricing. I think that was a cab thing a while back for a few customers. So now what I want to know is if they can see that. So go back to the second tab because I don't want them to be able to see it. Yeah. Because that would not, that just wouldn't. Pricing
You just need
button.
a pop-up that says close your eyes.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Pricing button in portal invoice is showing, should not. Close your eyes. Pop-up say, close your eyes, please. Okay.
Don't look.
So go ahead and close this screen for me and close the invoice screen. So that was a tangent conversation. But they see all the whole invoices. They see the item, as I mentioned earlier. So let's go ahead and close this. Now they can go ahead and say make a payment. So go ahead and click make a payment for me. So if we were using our credit card processing, that payment method, go ahead and do the drop-down selection. Right now, ACH is there because that's what you guys had wanted. So if you select ACH, go ahead and check mark the invoice that you want them to pay. So check mark the last one at the bottom. Let's pretend they didn't have any credits.
It's in front of that little saying
I'm
it's
sorry.
in an envelope.
I'm sorry, Conception,
Sorry.
we had an interruption. What was that
Oh,
again?
you're okay.
I heard
Oh,
the ACH.
so it's
and-
So yes, so the payment method ACH is there because you guys had asked for, you wanted that developed. So let's say that we're going to partially pay an invoice. So at the very bottom on the right side where it has the payment amount, go ahead and just type in $2,000 for me.
Right here,
Yeah,
2,000.
okay. And now go ahead and click outside of the box, or click, yeah. I'm trying to see if the total payment, you see where it says total payment above process payment? There you go.
There we go.
I was waiting for it to update that. So now go ahead and click process payment for me. So while this is running, once it saves, it actually is going to post two. And there's a receipt if they want it, and they can just close that, or they can print it. They don't really need to, and they can always go back and reprint it. So now go back to the third tab. Go back one. It's the one with your login. Yep. So when they save it, go ahead and close this screen, all these screens right here. We're going to go into the receive payment. And then go to receive payments for me.
Activity.
Yep. So that Seven Lakes payment's the first one up at the top, and it's also posted. So that was that email I sent to you, Ann, in regards to, do you want it automatically to post? And so we did that. If you scroll over to the right side, I just want to show you that the column says posted. Okay, awesome. So now what's going to happen is if it's posting right away, you're never going to miss it. But unless you're not processing ACH fast, like soon enough. So if you go to the unsubmitted ACH tab, anything that you have not generated a file for will be in this screen. So you'll have to type in a bank account number. So in this case, we're defaulting it to the user's default location and whatever bank account number is in there. If it's blank, it's going to find one that's set up in the bank account. So go ahead and do the drop down in that bank account number equals. And I think it's 847, so it's the fourth one. So the one's from mine earlier, and there's your $2,000 for today. And if you did any more ACHs throughout the day, you can process it with all of that if you want to, or you can just do it on its own. And from here on, it's the normal generate ACH that we did before. So now you can have, the best way to use the portal, I think, is if you had customers, they can't add their own ACH information, so that was the whole prerequisite where you can send, you have to still set them up in order for them to use that payment method.
All right.
All right. So let's go back to the second tab, the portal, and close this screen for me. And then go to the payments under the transaction section. So what this is going to show them is the receive payment screen that we were just in, but just for their transactions. And it shows that they entered it because they were the ones that did enter it. So now let's go ahead, and they can open if they want to, and view it. Let's make sure they can't unpost it or do anything else with it. so they can print it, it looks like. So let's go ahead and close this and close the received payments. Now, the payment history is a report. I don't recommend it only because I just left it there in case you guys wanted to, but it's like a report. They have to actually put in the filter. But as far as the portal is concerned, I think the grids is much easier to use than it is a report. So you can remove that if you guys would like. I'm going to skip over that and go to contracts. So if whatever contracts they have out there, it's going to show in the screen whether it's open or closed. It doesn't matter. It'll show it. Go ahead and let me see here. Open this for me because I actually didn't try opening it earlier. I was just happy with the grid, and it tells me how much is used. All right, so they can't, it looks like they can't really modify it. So you know how earlier I mentioned that you can have multiple sequences? Each sequence equals a beginning and end date. So if you have contracts that are monthly, but you don't want to create multiple contracts for them, you just keep extending it. You just have one that start date July through August or whatever, and then you just create another one and another one, and the system knows based off of the date range. When the contract is valid. So that's like a side note. And this tells you how much was the original contracted balance, and then the remaining balance, and how much is applied. But you don't need to open this in order to get that info. You could the grid, I think, has that information.
All right.
All right, so let's go ahead and close this. And close this. So 1099s, go ahead and go in there for me. This was another thing you guys had requested. The 1099, go ahead and switch. I created a record for this vendor. Switch the year to 2019 for me. And it's still doing that whole all vendors, and I've already written that up, so I'm just waiting to figure out when it's going to be fixed. Rather than doing all, switch that to 7 Lakes. And I don't remember the code. So my and then under the preview button up at the top, if you just wanted to do like a report format, which is probably what they would print, go ahead and click that. There's like a pre-printed form too, so it kind of looks like the 1099, but it's not the actual form.
Right.
So then they can reprint it just on plain paper. But go ahead and close this for me. Let me tell you what I mean by that. I don't remember, is show pre-printed?
Show pre-printed. Yeah.
Yep.
Show pre-printed.
And then click the preview again.
Yeah.
And do what, Conception?
Go to the preview and then, yep.
Report
and
again.
then report. There you go. Yep.
All right.
So because it's a 2-pager, it doesn't, it'll just be blank at the bottom. So let's go ahead and close this. And then close this. So that's the transaction section. So now we're going to go quickly. I don't have any transactions posted for this customer in either tank or car fueling, so we won't really see anything. but you'll get the idea. So let's go to tank management and go to My Tanks. And this just shows the consumption sites if they had any. So what you'll have to do is find a customer and set their contacts up with Portal, and then you'll be able to see what they, the kind of information that you guys have. So really right now I can't really show you this section. Go ahead and close this. Click request order for me. I wish I would have tried this too, because this mass users would be good to do this one. All right, so we don't have it set up, that's why. Okay. Would there be any value in you, like do you see yourself providing the portal for tank management users or not really?
I think some, the more savvy computer
Yeah.
customers would want something.
Okay.
This at some point will be available on the phone app too, correct?
I think the goal is yes, but I don't know when that will be, because I know that mobile billing, I know that if you try to access this on the phone, it's going to be just like you see it. It's not going to be where you can just click this and then it'll be like a phone app where there's only a few menus. So I'm not sure when. Now, if you have customers, the only way I can see that, like I can see making a payment just because there's very little information in the screen where they can probably use a phone, but I can't say for sure like the time frame.
Okay. I think that's where we'll see this mostly used. When
Yeah.
a mobile app will be available for ordering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it as far as if the screens had like 5 fields, I can see it working, but I mean, as you can tell, a lot of our screens just have a lot of fields and it may not work. So go ahead and close this for me. Over to card fueling. I only turned that on because you guys have card fueling. So if you click transactions, it'll show you if there were any transactions out there. I think I deleted my batch. I couldn't remember. It'll just show you the transactions grid and then any history that they've had. Go ahead and close this. So it's kind of like the invoice screen, but cards information. And then they have card accounts, which is their cards that's set up for that customer's account. Thank you for letting me know you don't have any. And then invoice history would be that monthly invoice that you send them, which in your case, you only have one a month. So.
Yes.
And then the purchase summary report is just another card fueling report, but we can't see it because we have no data. So this is more of a desktop approach. So really that's what I have for the portal. I feel like I'm missing something. Did I miss something that you guys had added on other than the ACH and the 1099?
I can't think of anything.
Okay. Just let me know if I do.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think that's about it.
All right.
Make a payment.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, so for everyday users and like just normal people like me that consume gas, I can see that, I mean, most people don't get on their desktop to do these things. They just do it on their phone. Now, what I would try though, and maybe it won't work, Jimmy, just because this is not like a app type on a mobile, but if you wanted them to have ACH process, and let's say they're okay with that, if you were to give them just a make a payment menu, that make a payment screen may be okay because there's only, you know what I mean, there's only a few fields. So you might want to check and see if that's doable. And just make a user role that's just make a payment. That's an option. But I'm giving you a workaround though, so.
All right.
All right. Well, that's what I have. The e-commerce you didn't have too many set up, but it's kind of incomplete because we don't have email addresses. So you'll just have to gather that information. But I can give you a complete list if you don't have it, for user maintenance. And I don't know if you want to kind of, okay,
Since
you have a
it's
list,
smaller,
okay.
Yeah. And I should have, I believe everybody on that list has emailed a request to set up, so I should have an email address.
Okay, all right. So you may want to do that. The conversion, it looks like, I'm trying to remember if there's a conversion button for it, because I had to set this one up manually, and this customer does have user portal. So I'll let you know, because I didn't see a button for the conversion. So we may have just set it up manually last time for the other customer that I took live. Now, I don't think you have too many, so it shouldn't take long. I think you have a total of 26. So I don't think you want me to, do you want me to set it up, or do you just want to go through that list and set it up?
I believe we can go through the list and set it up.
Okay. Let me see here. And I think there, let me see here. And that way you can tie them to the proper user role too, if you wanted to kind of have different kind of user roles for each user.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's what I have, guys. I think tomorrow's card fueling. So I will send you, for that I actually do have a PowerPoint because I wanted you guys to be able to have a quick way to go to that exact section without having to go through the whole recording. So I'll send that over sometime today, and then I'll send you the request tomorrow for the session.
All right.
All right. You guys have a wonderful day.